Now, former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore is a self-described bookworm, even though it did take a few tries to get through his favorite novel. In the end, it was all worth it, and it gave the Republican a whole new view of the world itself. Jim Gilmore can boast quite a list of accomplishments. As a former intelligence officer in the Army, Attorney General, Governor of Virginia, just a few of the highlights. But he tried to convince our cafe audience that there's still a regular Joe behind that resume.
Oh, well, I'm a pretty normal guy, really. You know, I mean, really.
We're just normal people.
Yeah. Look, what I do is I read all the time. I read constantly. I buy books and I read books. I've got a library at home of over 3,000 books, and I've read most of them. And I continue to read. I read all the time. And, you know, I like to watch sports on TV. I've got my teams. I never am successful when I'm in New Hampshire talking about them, but...
With thousands of books digested, his favorite is the one that helped him learn a certain approach to life.
Yeah, well, you know, it took me a long time to figure this out. I tried to read Moby Dick about 12 times, you know, coming along, and nobody ever reads Moby Dick. But I did. One day I said, well, what is this book all about? And I found that Melville had something to say, or he wouldn't have put it in the book. So it requires patience. And, you know, I've learned now several things in life. I've learned, this took a long time to learn. I've learned that you ought to listen more instead of talking so much. You ought to be patient, which I've always been an impatient guy. That's why I've done so much in politics and public life and all that kind of thing. You know, and, you know, listen and patience and relationships with people. And that's something that took me a long time. Because coming up in politics, I was a young guy that worked my way up pretty fast, and it was crash, bang, you know. And now that I've come to the point in life where I begin to realize that relationships are awfully important. So that's where Moby Dick comes in. Moby Dick is about reading every chapter and trying to figure out what the guy was trying to say, as opposed to just trying to get through the plot. We Americans are taught to read books for plot. You know, what happened? We watch the television. What happened? And he's not doing that at all. He's talking about much more complex things in Moby Dick. Anyway,
complex things for a candidate who has analyzed complex situations since he was a young man.
I went to the public high school. We didn't go to the idea of going to private school someplace. We didn't have the money for that. So I went to the public school and then somehow got into the University of Virginia and studied foreign policy, among other things. That was a big revelation to me because I was so narrow as a kid, and suddenly the world kind of opened up and I began to see all these things.
And he saw even more after the Army sent him to Germany to be an intelligence agent during the Cold War.
Well, I didn't wear a uniform in Europe. I was always in plain clothes. My hair was long, and you know, I spoke German pretty doggone well. I really did. Got to be really good. And, you know, I looked and acted like a guy that just was kind of a college student. I was a young soldier, and most people could figure out I was an American, but they didn't quite know exactly what I was. But you know, my job there was to be in support of NATO. I was trained to be an offensive intelligence agent, but I was actually used as a counterintelligence agent mostly in Europe. And we knew that the Russians and the East Germans were constantly trying to penetrate NATO and to understand what the defenses were like for Western Europe. Because there might come a time when the Russian interest was to, in fact, invade, and we had to prevent that. We had to be prepared at all times.
His understanding of the language and zeal for his principles did come in useful in other situations, too.
I remember one Christmas I was there, and I couldn't go home. I didn't have leave, so I couldn't go home. And so there I was in Heidelberg. And all the students at the University of Heidelberg that I usually hung around with were gone. And it was snowy. I still remember being in Heidelberg, and I went into one of the bars, and I was having a beer, and there wasn't anybody there. And I walked down the stairs, and I heard a couple. There was only one other couple in the bar, and they were a man and a woman, a girl and a boy, and they were talking. And they were talking in German, of course, and the girl said, well, don't you worry, when the revolution comes, things will be much better. And I stopped and I said to him in German, that's absolute baloney. And I ended up dating a girl for 3 years.
Gilmore had stories about his time in Germany, but also some sobering ones from his tenure as governor of Virginia.
I was in New York the day before, on September 10th. And I was right near the World Trade Center, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to take a lot of your time talking about all that unless you want to know, but I did get back to Virginia in time to be in the mansion at the time of the attack. I turned on the TV just like you all did, and I saw the World Trade Center, you know, in flames. And then I actually watched the second plane go into the second tower because we were all watching. And then at that point, I'm the governor. So what am I going to do, right? Well, I'm going to do what I have to do. I suddenly was a war governor, and I picked up the phone and I activated the National Guard. I activated the Emergency Operations Control Center for the state of Virginia. I warned the state police to watch out for gunplay anywhere in the state and report it into the central headquarters. And then I got across the street to the governor's office in time to find out the second estate attack that day was Virginia. So the Pentagon's in Virginia. It's not in Washington. So, you know, everything that we had talked about in our previous 3 years came to pass. The police fire rescue went in there to address the Pentagon. Not the federal government. They were the victim. They weren't the responders. The fire department was the responders.
A real experience from someone who does have a lot, even though he says in this race he does feel overlooked, but he's certainly not giving up. Instead, using it as part of his narrative.
But I thought about it a lot. And, you know, I never came along in life with a silver spoon. My father, as I said, was a working man, a meat cutter, and, you know, I never had the things that propel certain people forward. So, you know, I think that being excluded from the debates is no fun because you know practically that you need to be able to get your message out. But, you know, another way, a lot of Americans are excluded and feel excluded, don't they? They do. They feel like they're left out. They feel like that other people have advantages that propel them forward, and they're frustrated too. So in a way, you know, what the experience I'm facing right now is an American experience, and I think the right answer to that is to persevere and come here and speak to folks like you and get my message out as best I can.